Probably the country that has the second most varieties represented here is probably Thailand. This mango that I'm holding here is called Brahm Kai Meu. Okay, next to me here is our one and only Keow Savoy. Is a dwarfish variety from Thailand called Falan. Right next to our Falan tree here is our Ivory Mango. Okay, right next to us here is our Okrung tree. Okay, so the tree I'm standing next to right here is a Doc Mai number 4. Right behind me here is our one and only Doc Mai Tong.
Hello everybody, welcome to Fruitful Trees. Today we got a special show. We're back at Tropical Acres Farms and we're with Alex and we're going to be talking about Thai mangoes. Yes, this here is a Thai mango. They look different. They're often longer, not 100% of the times, but they're longer than regular mangoes, so they're pretty easy to identify. But some of them you could eat green, some of them you could eat at different stages. So Alex is going to be talking about Thai mangoes. This is going to be part 1 of either a 2 or 3 part video series. So we're going to meet Alex now and talk about Thai mangoes and the mangoes he has that are of the Thai variety. So there's several different varieties and there's good information. So here we go, Tropical Acres Farm. Thai mangoes, let's go. Hello everybody, welcome to Fruitful Trees. We are back. This is Alex and we're at Tropical Acres Farms. And we are doing another video today about ethnic mangoes and we're looking at Thai mangoes today. So this is going to be more than a 1-part series, maybe 2, maybe 3, but we're looking at Thai mangoes and we're going to cover some of them. I'm going to put the descriptions, links below as well, but you can go to Alex's website, tropicalacresfarms.com, and see the descriptions and what all they look like. He has budwood there as well. What do you want to say about the Thai mangoes we're going to cover here today?
We have quite a few varieties from Thailand here at the farm and in South Florida in general. Thai mangoes don't have quite as long of a history in Florida as like the Indian mangoes do, but at this point they have certainly a multi-decade history here, and we'll be talking about quite a few of them. So look forward to it.
So besides trees from India, would you say Thai is the next ethnicity group that you have the most of?
Yeah, I think so. Probably the country that has the second most varieties represented here is probably Thailand. I have to look at the list to confirm that, but I'm pretty sure.
Not just, you say in the United States or on your particular farm or both?
Well, perhaps in the United States, but at least here at this farm. You know, India is certainly the one that you find the most varieties of that have been introduced here at some point in time, but I think Thailand is probably a solid second.
All right, everybody.
Other countries. There
it is. We're excited. We're going to go check this out. So get ready. This is going to be part 1. We're going to look at some of the Thai mango trees that they have here at Tropical Acres Farms. Links are below, and here we go. Okay, here we are doing Thai mangoes, and this is Alex at Tropical Acres Farms. All right.
Okay, well, this mango that I'm holding here is called Brahm Kai Meu. At least that's how I've been pronouncing it. When I purchased my first ever tree of this, it was spelled with a B. Most often I see it spelled with a P now. You might see it spelled both ways. Anyway, this variety is from Thailand, of course, and is usually eaten green, but it may be eaten ripe. And it has what we'll call a kind of a prototypical Thai flavor when it's ripe. So it's got some honey, maybe a little bit of vegetable, but when it's green, it's more like kind of like eating an apple or something like that. It's usually eaten green as it's approaching maturity. It's not like Keow Savoy where it can be eaten like super, super green. I mean, it can be, but at that stage, it's maybe a little bitter. So in Thailand, this mango is usually not allowed to ripen. Now here, what we found is when it ripens here, it will often develop splitting or cracking, which makes the fruit a lot of times unsaleable as ripe mango. So our preference with Brahm Kai Meu is to sell it green if we can. And we've shipped whole boxes of it green before in the past as well. Now we ended up with 2 of these trees by mistake. We only intended to plant 1, but this one behind me here was planted as a Falan tree, and it turned out to be a Brahm Kai Meu. So, and then we have another one that was planted as a Brahm Kai Meu in a different section of the property. So these trees are actually pretty consistent producers for us. They flower pretty well here in South Florida. In fact, they flower much better for us than some of the other Thai mangoes do. It's got kind of, I would call it a moderately vigorous to vigorous growth habit. This is not a small tree, and usually pretty productive. It hasn't been hurt too bad by fungus when it's flowering and setting its fruit. So this is a variety that should fruit okay if it's brought into more humid areas. What else can I say about it? I would categorize it as more of a mid-season mango, but this is from a late bloom that it had. So this tree, it's not unusual for it to flower multiple times. And so this fruit's not even like, well, I suppose if I picked it, it might ripen up, but it could still feasibly hang on the tree for maybe another week or two more. So what else can I say about this mango? I don't remember what it means in Thai. It does like have a kind of specific name, if you will, so somebody else can comment on that, or maybe I'll remember. But anyway, that's Brahm Kai Meu.
So somebody said to me, trade wife for mango. Which one?
Yeah, okay, something like that. I know it's some kind of phrase, right? It's not like a person's name or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that could be it. But anyway, so it's grown on some commercial scale in Thailand, but I don't think it's grown anywhere near as much as like Doc Mai and now Keow Savoy and some of the others.
So if you pick it green, how do you know when to pick it? Because usually the color changes is when you know, but if these are ripe when they're green, how do you know?
The hue color goes a little lighter, and the stem will start to harden off a bit, and it will usually bleed clear. And at that stage, it's usually like mature enough that it could potentially ripen off the tree, or if you're going to eat it green, like it's not going to be like super bitter. It'll be more enjoyable. So they can get bigger than this, by the way. So these are kind of smaller specimens, but they can get like more like that. So this tree had a good crop this year, but there's just not much fruit left on it because the second bloom wasn't as substantial as the first.
So you pick it green, and you could either eat it green or let it ripen to get yellow off the tree.
Right.
Would you ever pick these yellow on the tree or not really?
Yeah, I have, but like I mentioned before, the problem is that, well, the problem I've had, okay, is that a lot of them will develop like little splits and cracks towards the top of the fruit, towards like the stem end, and then that kind of renders them like unsaleable, and you know, then it's kind of waste. So that's why my preference when selling this fruit is to pick it green and sell it as green mango. So, and like I said, we have two of these. Maybe it's more than I need. Like I probably only need one Brahm Kai Meu, so it's a top work target in the future because it's not like I get a lot of requests for it as ripe mango or in general. Like most people that are going to ask for like green mango, they kind of ask generically for green mango. You know, if they're from East Asia, they might be directly referencing Thai mangoes, but like we also grow other varieties that can be picked green that we're going to talk about in this video. So like this one is not necessarily like super sought after. So the flesh is fiberless, sweet. The seed is like paper thin, very thin. So it's got that going for it, I suppose.
What's the flavor in terms of eating it ripe? Is it a sweet, super sweet?
Very sweet. Like most of the Thai mangoes, it's honey. It's honey with a little bit of vegetable and some floral component to it too. Not quite as floral as Doc Mai though. So if you've had Doc Mai, this is a little different. They're not like completely identical. And it's not like Okrung, which we'll talk about a little later, or Ivory. It's a little richer flavor than those, not as insipid. So
okay. All right.
We'll do Keow.
Some people say Brahm Kai Meu, or is it Brahm Kai Meu?
Yeah, I don't, and it's a Thai translation, if you will, but like you'd have to have a Thai person pronounce it, and enunciate it to like know, and I'm sure there's people on YouTube like that say it correctly. I'm not saying it correctly. Right. Okay, next to me here is our one and only Keow Savoy tree. Now, Keow Savoy is a variety from Thailand that's not as old as some of the other Thai varieties we're discussing in this video. I believe it was selected like less than 50 years ago or something like that at a university in Thailand. Like maybe their ag university. I don't know. Somebody can chime in on that. But and the original tree, I think, is still there. Anyway, this mango was basically bred to be picked green, and it consumed green. It can be eaten ripe, just like any other mango can be. It is a slender, kind of oblong fruit, probably shaped. It is actually shaped similarly to the Brahm Kai Meu that we discussed. But the main difference between this and a lot of the other Thai varieties is not only can this be eaten green, it can be eaten like super green, like well before maturity. So whereas on the others, you're waiting for them to almost become ripe before you're picking them and eating them green. This guy, you can eat it like at the halfway point or whatever, and it's still sweet when it's green. So that's kind of interesting about this. It is probably the most popular Thai mango to be eaten green. So like when we get green eating requests, like specific varieties, this one gets brought up the most. Unfortunately, I have not had the best of luck with this tree. It doesn't flower that great for us here in West Palm Beach from what I've observed. And I did have a tree out at my old farm in Loxahatchee. That one would flower a little better, but it was not as like intensely blooming as you would expect. So it may take a stronger drought trigger or cold weather trigger to get consistent full blooms on this tree. And I've had a few full blooms, but in the time that we've been growing this, which is at this point a decade or so for this tree, I would say I've been disappointed with the production. Anyway, beyond that, like the fruit has some value to it. And it is a mid-season mango. So like they don't ripen in May or usually even June in a lot of cases. But it's definitely like if it's going to be ripening, usually a later June and early July fruit for us. There's no fruit left on it. It had a minor crop this year, unsurprisingly. So kind of some sparse bloom. The other thing I don't like about this tree is it's a terrible budwood tree, and of course we sell mango budwood. This variety stays dormant for long periods of time, and then it has one flush of growth a year for us, and it's a huge flush. So we'll get really long shoots coming off of the branches, and then it stays dormant the rest of the year. So I would call this a frustrating tree for me. We keep it around because we have to graft Keow Savoy trees for people, but if it were not for that, I wouldn't keep this tree. So that's
is it a vigorous tree? Or?
Yes, so you can see that. It's kind of a vertical grower with kind of a dense canopy. I don't like its growth habit, frankly, but it's not a tree for a small yard. This is more of a collector's mango, in my opinion. Or a tree for somebody that just really wants green mangoes and doesn't care too much about ripe fruit. Probably would flower better in Central or West Florida. Probably a good mango for California, I would say. Almost certainly a good mango for Southern California, actually, based on the growth habit and the lack of precocity and some other factors. So this is a good candidate if you like Thai mangoes, like, or if you just like eating mangoes green and you're in California, think about Keow Savoy as an option of a tree to plant. So.
Okay, and how do you know how to pick it if it's one?
The hue color changes a bit. It goes from like a more emerald color to like a lighter. But the main thing is if you start getting a few ripe ones, that's a sign that the fruit are getting close to maturity. And with this guy, they actually tree ripen okay, like much better than Brahm Kai Meu. But I'm not that excited about it as a ripe mango. It's more impressive to me as a green eating mango, even though I don't eat mangoes that way too often. So I can acknowledge at least that it's one of the better green eating mangoes along with Falan and Munkunsi, which we'll also talk about in the video.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, this little tree next to me is a dwarfish variety from Thailand called Falan, which I think means thunder. over there.
I think they renamed it. Some people call it thunder because when you eat it, it makes a sound of thunder. They say a crunch. So
yeah, it could be.
I don't think it
I've heard
that.
different stories about that, honestly. And it's been misspelled in the Florida nursery trade as Falan, like with a G at the end. I've seen it spelled Farlan, like Farlan. I believe like the best way to spell this is Falan, Falan. Anyway, we had tried to obtain a Falan originally when we planted the trees over here, and that turned out to be a mislabeled Brahm Kai Meu, which we already discussed. But anyway, we finally did get a real Falan. I don't know how many years ago it was. But we planted it in a permanent space that we had here that was previously occupied by a tree that struggled in this location. And we did stick it between two trees that were planted like some years before. But you can definitely see the dwarfish growth habits, very bushy. I need to prune back the trees that are next to it, which is an ivory and a Jacqueline, to give this guy a little more space here. These trees are due for pruning anyway. But this tree has fruited the last 2 years. What else can I say about it? I believe it's primarily eaten green, and it's kind of oblong shaped. Trying to think of what it looks like. Might have a picture on the website. It looks a little different from Brahm Kai Meu, and I think it's a little more like Okrung Mango, from what I remember. But anyway, it can be eaten ripe too. The main advantage of this is it's like the dwarfest of the Thai varieties that I've seen. You can see like this, you can imagine this growing in a container or something. So like if you're looking for a dwarf Thai variety, this and another one that we'll talk about later, the Okrung Mango, Moon Kunsi is another one to consider, I suppose, for container growth. The other Thai varieties are actually fairly vigorous trees. So yeah, kind of a mid-season mango, fiber-free, sweet, you know, pretty honey flavored it when it's ripe. That's about it. It's flowered each of the last 2 years for us, but it hasn't had like the kind of intense blooms I was expecting. Like I've seen these growing on other properties and they flowered a little more intensely, but it's not as old as its neighbors are either. So as this tree gets older, it wouldn't surprise me if it starts to flower more completely. But at least it has fruited the last 2 years.
How well is it known amongst the Thai people?
Some of them have heard of it because, like, I've had conversations with people. I don't think it's anywhere near as popular as the other ones like Nam Doc Mai, Pimps and Moon, Brahm Kai Meu, Keow, Savoy. So it's got a niche, but I'm not sure how widely planted it is in Thailand and if it's really grown on significant commercial scale like the other ones happen to be. So, okay, so right next to our Falan tree here is our Ivory Mango. Ivory is also known as Nang Klang Wang, and I believe it has several other names too. It is grown in Thailand, but it's also now grown in China and a few other places. So this mango is a very vigorous tree. It's one of the most vigorous trees that we grow regardless of origin. So you can see it's got an extremely dense canopy, kind of a vertical growth habit. It's a very long looking fruit, and they can get larger than this. In fact, here's some larger ones down here. Pretty good size. It is definitely a mid to late season mango for us. In fact, I've had them last like well into August, a number of years. I've had pretty good crops from Ivory. It fruits pretty well here in West Palm Beach, even though we've had to prune this tree back a few times now. It flowers reasonably well, and this year it had a little bit of a reduced crop over the prior year, but I still ended up with plenty of mangoes. There's dozens of them left just in this section of the canopy, and there's some in other parts of it as well. And it's not one of these mangoes that's eaten green. It's kind of bitter when it's green. It's a mango that needs to be eaten when it's ripe. As a ripe mango, I consider it kind of insipid. It tastes like sugarcane juice, and that's about it. That's like what Ivory tastes like to me. It does have people that are fans of it, so we do sell some Ivory trees every year. In fact, there's even some people that have planted some commercial plantings of it over in Southwest Florida, I think, because we sold them the trees. But anyway, what else can I say about Ivory? Very thin seed, so very good flesh to seed ratio, and not a precocious tree. This one requires patience. It definitely can take, as a grafted tree, you know, most grafted mangoes in Florida can fruit in 2 years, sometimes 3 or whatever. This one often takes longer than that to start fruiting. So it can take longer than 3 years before you see fruit from this after planting it. So a little bit of patience, but once it does start to fruit, it usually fruits pretty well and pretty consistently from what we've observed. Doesn't have really any issues with bacterial black spot. I think this would probably fruit like super well in humid areas of Florida. In fact, I've seen it fruit well in such areas. This mango's other claim to fame is that it's probably the parent of a couple varieties of mangoes that are pretty well known. One of them is the Maha Chinook. Maha is likely a hybrid of this and a Florida mango. And we will talk about Maha in this video, but the other variety that this is a parent of is the so-called Golden Queen, the Jin Huang mango, which was a hybrid of this and the Kit. So I'm not sure if it was a seedling of this or if this was the pollinating parent, but anyway, it does have some recognition as a parent of a couple very well-known mangoes too. So anyway, that's Ivory.
Now, you said it's a vigorous tree?
Yes, very vigorous tree. Makes long shoots. It has long internodes between the leaves, as you can see here. See, the spacing between the leaves is quite distant.
Sure.
And it makes very thick stems also. And it's very vertical. We've trained it to grow outward a little bit. So, but I need to prune this tree this year.
A lot of the mangoes are on the bottom. Did you just harvest the ones on the top, or is that just
It didn't have too many on the top, but yeah, I think the earlier crop was more towards the top of the tree. But there's some on this side of the tree too. And a little bit on the other side, but
now do all Thai mangoes have that long shape?
No, there's a few that are, well, no, and there's one we'll talk about, the Thai everbearing, for example, that's not so oblong. So not all of them do, but the vast majority of them do, are oblong shaped. So at least the ones that we're going to be talking about in this video. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Nice tree. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, right next to us here is our Okrung tree. We used to have 2 of these. Now we only have 1. Okrung is one of the sweetest mangoes from Thailand. It's exceptionally sweet mango. You know, very high sugar content. Has a little bit of fiber. It is a small mango. And its flesh to seed ratio is not quite as good as the other Thai varieties. The seed is a little thicker compared to the other ones that we've discussed. It's not quite as paper thin. So this is about as big as they get. I guess sometimes they can be slightly larger. We have a few of them left on the ground. Here's another one. They'll turn a little yellow over here. When they're grown inland, I've noticed that they often will stay green, though, when they're mature and ripe. So oftentimes they'll drop to the ground before you think that they are ready. Anyway, very sweet. We talked about the Ivory already. This is kind of similar in the same wheelhouse, I suppose, in terms of what the flavor is like. So very sweet, no subacidity at all, just, you know, kind of a sugarcane type of flavor. The trees are moderately vigorous growers and also very unprecocious, like the Ivory. These take a long time to start flowering, even as grafted trees, and that can be kind of frustrating. So we used to have 2 of them. One was supposed to be an Okrung Tong, which is a different Thai mango, but it turned out to be an Okrung. This was purchased as an Okrung and is an Okrung. as well. So we top worked one of our Okrung trees, the one that was the mislabeled one, because we determined that there wasn't a ton of demand for this mango, and it's not a green eating mango. It is bitter when it's green, so it's one of these varieties that needs to be allowed to ripen to be enjoyed. So it is a very good fruiter for us. It makes a lot of mangoes every year, more than we really know what to do with. And besides that, a little prone to bacterial black spot, which I don't like about it. But it can fruit pretty well in humid areas. I had an Okrung tree out in Loxhatchee Groves when I had my old farm out there, and it had no issues with anthracnose out there, so it had that going for it. Anyway, kind of an early to mid-season mango. So I guess these are some of the last fruits left on it. Looks like it might have one or two left up in the tree, but here we are in late July, so I don't normally expect this tree to be holding much fruit at this point.
You said it's a vigorous tree, but it looks
moderately vigorous. This one has grown less vigorously than the other one did.
Okay, it still looks much smaller than the last one. The last one's a vigorous tree, though.
Yeah, the last one is a very vigorous tree, the Ivory. Yeah, this is nowhere near as vigorous as that.
And you eat these green, or?
No, they're not good green. Okay. They're bitter. When they're green, bitter, not sour like Pimps and Moon or something like that. So they're, to me at least, they're not enjoyable at all when they're green. Maybe some people might enjoy that, but I don't really get like people.
Do you let them ripen on a tree?
Yeah. Yeah, they can tree ripen fine. You can pick them green, like mature green, and they'll ripen off the tree, no problem. But typically we just let them tree ripen. We don't ship too many of these because it's just not a very popular variety. So doesn't make it into our shipping boxes too much.
Okay, when you're top working Thai mango, is it better to top work on a Thai mango rootstock, or it doesn't make a difference?
No, I don't think it hasn't made a difference in my experience. Like for example, the old Okrung, which is over here, we top worked that into a Bennett Alfonso, which actually you and I did a video on that years ago. And you know, Bennett Alfonso is from India, so there was no issue grafting that onto the Okrung. And I'm trying to think if there's other Thai varieties that I've top worked. I'm in the process of top working a Nam Doc Mai number 4 into a ZIL P22, for example. I don't think there was any really serious issue with the grafts taking. So, no, I think if you've got a Thai inner stock that you want to top work, I wouldn't be too concerned about what varieties you select to put on top of it. So.
Okay, and of all the Thai mangoes, what's your personal favorite one?
My favorite Thai mangoes are probably Maha Shinak and Tong Dam, which I guess we'll talk about at some point. That has a very rich flavor, although I haven't eaten a Tong Dam in a very long time. And that's about it. The other ones, they're kind of very similar to me in some respects. Certainly there's differences between them, of course, which we'll discuss, but I think my favorite, probably Maha Shinak, because it's not quite as, it's a little bit more complex in flavor as a ripe mango than the other Thai varieties are.
From my experience and in interviewing people, I would say the Maha Shinak is most people's favorite Thai mango, but the most popular one is Nam Doc Mai.
Oh, you mean in terms of like popular in terms of seeing it around and talked about and whatever. Yeah, that's true. Nam Doc Mai is kind of the prototypical Thai mango, and it's the most common mango in Thailand as far as I know. And it has like, it was established here before a lot of the other Thai varieties were, so like there's a lot of reputational demand for Nam Doc Mai within the nursery trade. But what I've found is that the demand for Thai mangoes in general has been declining for a while. Americans aren't really big fans of Thai mangoes. There are some that are, of course, but they don't quite, for a lot of people, have the complexity that some of the other hybrids have that people are seeking. So, you know, it's why we never devoted, like, we've usually only planted like 1 or 2 of the Thai varieties that we grow. I don't think that we have any more than that number of any one single one of them. So, but we certainly have enough to produce the trees and the budwood. So
Okay. All right, let's go to the next one.
okay, so the tree I'm standing next to right here is a Nam Doc Mai number 4. Now we grow 3 different kinds of Nam Doc Mai on this farm, which we'll be discussing in this video. And in reality, there's actually way more than 3 kinds of Nam Doc Mai. In Thailand, there's actually dozens of iterations of Nam Doc Mai. And most of them, I believe, are numbered. And there may be more than 30. But the number 4 is the one that is most commonly found in the Florida nursery trade today. And the reason for that is it grows a little more compactly than the other types of, or than a lot of the other types of Nam Doc Mai. And it's a little more precocious, meaning it fruits at a younger age than some of the other grafted Nam Doc Mai trees do. So ever since like the late 90s or early 2000s, the Nam Doc Mai number 4 has become the most common version of Nam Doc Mai you'll find within the trade. Nam Doc Mai, it's, as a variety, if you will, was first introduced to Florida back in the 1970s by Dr. Robert Knight over at the USDA in Miami. So it's been around in Florida, but for some decades. But the first ones that were introduced, I believe, were Nam Doc Mai's number 8 and number 11. And so those trees grew kind of vertically, and there's still quite a few of them still left in Florida. A lot of the older Nam Doc Mai trees will be one of those. But anyway, they have more of a lanky vertical growth habit, and they're much less precocious. They take longer to fruit, and from what I've seen, they often don't bear as consistently or as well. Now, I mentioned that we have 2 Nam Doc Mai number 4s. The other one was a mislabeled tree. We only intended to plant one of them here. But that mislabeled one was substantially larger than this one, even though they were planted at the same time. So there is a reputation of Nam Doc Mai number 4 within the nursery trade. It's a myth that it's kind of a dwarf tree. It's not. It is in my opinion, moderately vigorous tree, can get fairly large. You can probably keep them in the 12-foot range or so with pruning, and they'll still be productive enough, but they're not dwarfs, okay? They're just more compact and dense than some of the other Nam Doc Mais. So there's a few fruit left on this tree. It did have multiple blooms. It does turn yellow when it's mature, but it doesn't turn the brilliant yellow color that the one we'll talk about in a moment does. It's more of a lighter yellow. In some areas, they'll still be kind of green when they're ready to pick. Nam Doc Mai, at least the number 4, is not really a great green-eating mango. It is mostly consumed ripe, and in Thailand, some people do eat it green, I should say, but it's commonly used for like sticky rice and mango, as a dessert mango. It's very soft-fleshed and completely fiber-free and free-stone. So there's no seed fiber on Nam Doc Mai, really. It comes off very clean and has a very thin seed. So like all the other Thai mangoes, or almost all the other Thai mangoes, it's polyembryonic. So over in Thailand, a lot of people grow Nam Doc Mai from seed, actually. So it can come true from seed a good bit of the time, but not 100% of the time. And so anyway, in my experience, the number 4, compared to the other varieties of Nam Doc Mais that I've grown, is more likely to split open on the tree during long periods of drought, or a lot of rainfall occurs all of a sudden. These split a little worse than the other Nam Doc Mai varieties do. Usually most of the fruit doesn't split though, but I've had years where like quite a few of these split, so it can be an issue. I also find it doesn't flower quite as easily as our Nam Doc Mai moon tree flowers. So even though we get fruit off our number 4 trees every year, it's not always 100% bloom on them. So what else? I hate it as a budwood tree. Have a really hard time finding good budwood on this when we do budwood checks. So yeah, one day I might get rid of this one too. I don't like this tree. I don't recommend this tree. Frankly, if you want to plant a Nam Doc Mai, you're probably better off planting one of the other Nam Doc Mai varieties that are offered within the nursery trade, including a couple that we grow here. So
Now, do the other ones, is it just a growing habit that you don't like, or do they taste different? Do they all taste the same?
to me, okay, on flavor, there could be people that will find distinctions between them, but in my experience, they all taste the same to me. My palate may not be refined enough to pick up the difference between a sea of Tong and this, or the moon, which we'll talk about later. So they basically taste the same to me. This one, probably in the middle in terms of fruit size, from what I've observed compared to the other ones. They can certainly get larger than this, so this is like... I don't know if I have any more here that are more prototypical size. Doesn't look like we do. There's like almost no fruit left on this tree at this point. So, but anyway, they can, there's a couple, and the ones that are left are actually kind of small. But this can get bigger than this, okay? It is kind of a standard size Nam Doc Mai. You know, they can get like over a pound. So, anyway.
So, from my experience, a lot of them often seem to have jelly seed. Is that common?
Yeah, that can happen, unfortunately, with this variety. Also, it can definitely get jelly seed and soft-nosed. Best way to prevent that is to pick them when they're mature green and ripen them off the tree. They do ripen off the tree very well. They can be allowed to tree ripen, though. Most of the time, they're fine. So I haven't, even though I've encountered that, like, and it's a problem, if you want to prevent it, it's very preventable. So.
Okay. And how does it work with bacterial black spot? Is it pretty?
I would call it a little prone, anywhere from low to moderately prone. It hasn't been highly prone in our experience, but because of the fissures it can get rot quite a bit. So if it does get bacterial spot, you can lose quite a bit of them to the rotting fungi that get into those crevices in the fruit. So, but I would say no more than moderately prone to bacterial spot itself. It is fairly resistant to anthracnose at the flowering stage and the small fruit stage, so it's not uncommon to find these in like more humid parts of Florida because they will fruit there. So, but post-harvest, they do get anthracnose, quite a bit actually. So it's definitely prone to post-harvest anthracnose enough that you'll notice it like if you're buying the fruit in a lot of cases. So unless it's like being treated or something. So
yeah. So two other things I want to mention to the viewers is one of the things I think I heard from you is the tree commonly gets powdery mildew, but this tree, the fruit breaks through in the powdery mildew quite well. Is that, did I hear that from you or someone else?
It's very prone to powdery mildew. Does it break through it, set through it? I don't know. I mean, we spray sulfur to make sure powdery mildew doesn't hurt us regardless. I would say if you're going to grow this tree, plan on controlling the powdery mildew somehow, some way, and choosing some kind of product to prevent it. Because if you don't, certain years, it can get wiped out by it, and then you don't end up with much fruit. So, yeah, and I've seen them growing in other places where they got hit really hard by powdery mildew. So, it's something you need to consider if you're going to grow this tree. To me, this is more of a collector's mango at this point.
Yeah, but it's so popular, so you don't recommend it, but it's so popular that people think it's the standard of every mango.
Yeah, I would say its popularity is waning, though. We get a lot less requests in our nursery and at our fruit stand for this variety than we used to get 10 years ago. So, yes, it is living off of its reputation, okay, because it's been around a long time and it's still common in the nursery trade, but it's not a mango that I ever leap to recommend to people. You know, like when people ask about Nam Doc Mai and they like give me, you know, the flexibility to do so, I will recommend one of the other Nam Doc Mai iterations over this. So,
and the other thing I wanted to mention is the flavor is quite unique. I don't know how about compared to Thai mangoes, but just compared to mangoes in general, it's a different flavor.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely what we call, we group in the Thai flavor group, right? Nam Doc Mai is very floral. Okay, there's a lot of inflorescence in the aroma and the flavor, but a lot of honey as well. Can get a little bit of vegetable, but not as much as some of the aforementioned ones do. It doesn't excite me from a flavor standpoint, but there are people that appreciate that. I don't think it's a bad tasting mango. I just find it kind of boring, I guess. There's no subacidity to it at all. So
there's super thin
if you eat it like a little less ripe, it's maybe a little more enjoyable to the American palate, like versus eating it like dead ripe. But I'm not fond of it either way. So.
And also, it's a super thin seed.
Yeah, very,
a lot
like
of flesh
paper
on there.
thin. Like it's, yeah, very thin seed. So.
All right, so that's this Nam Doc Nam number 4. You heard it here. It's not a dwarf, most likely people think it is, and not recommended. But go on and show us the Sia Tong, because
okay, we'll talk about that one next.
Is recommended over this one if you are going to get this type of mango. All right.
All right, right behind me here is our one and only Nam Doc Mai Sia Tong. So Sia Tong is one of the Nam Doc Mai iterations that was brought over from Thailand some decades ago. It might have been brought after the first couple Nam Doc Mais were brought. So this may have been introduced in the 80s or 90s, I'm not sure. But this is known as the golden Nam Doc Mai, called such because its skin color is a much more bright yellow, glowing color, if you will, compared to the other Nam Doc Mais, including the other Nam Doc Mais we grow. So it's distinctive looking. And it will actually start to turn yellow while it's still quite firm, and will stay on the tree for a while before it's actually ripe, which I find kind of interesting. But it usually, if it turns yellow, it means it's mature and we can pick it. From what I've observed, this one is a little less prone to splitting than the Nam Doc Mai number 4 is. It's also less precocious, so it takes longer for Sia Tong trees to start flowering and fruiting here in South Florida. I have grown this tree in multiple locations. I did have a Sia Tong. I think I might have had 2 Sia Tongs over in Loxhatchee Groves. Pretty good anthracnose resistance. I think its post-harvest anthracnose resistance is superior to the number 4s, but it doesn't get quite as large. From what I've seen, the Sia Tong fruit tend to come out a little smaller than the number 4 and the moon that we'll talk about later, as well as smaller than the old Nam Doc Mais that you'll find in Florida as well. It also has more of that classic vertical growth habit. This is not as compact and naturally spreading. So it wants to grow a little more upward, more vertically than the other Nam Doc Mai trees that we have. So other than that, the season is about the same as the other Nam Doc Mais, so it's kind of an early to mid-season mango. I'd probably more appropriately classify it as a mid-season variety. Same super thin seed. Same flavor to me as the other Nam Doc Mais as well. But I would probably, if I was choosing a Nam Doc Mai to grow, if I had to choose between this and the number 4, I probably would plant the Sia Tong over the number 4. So,
if somebody has a number 4, would you recommend them top working it to the Sia Tong?
No, not necessarily. I'd recommend them doing whatever they feel like. If they love the Nam Doc Mai number 4 or just Nam Doc Mai in general, they're probably fine with a number 4 tree. So they can kind of do whatever they want as far as I'm concerned. But if they don't like the tree, then sure, top work it. We only had we've only planted 1 Sia Tong here. I haven't really felt the need. There is good demand for its budwood, I suppose, just because it's a little scarce in the nursery trade here in Florida. So we do make grafted Sia Tong trees every year. We get orders for it. It is kind of a unique looking mango, I suppose, compared to the number 4, being that it gets that kind of golden glowish color. But I've never felt the need to plant a second Sia Tong. So
now, does you get better budwood from this tree than number 4?
No, it's the same problem. It is not a good budwood tree. In fact, because of its vertical growth habit, I can have some difficulty harvesting budwood from this, which I don't like, because I don't like having to get into a ladder or into a machine to get budwood. So actually, this one can be tricky for us to get budwood from. At least when we're harvesting it for budwood orders. For grafted trees, that's a different story, because we'll do like a bunch of them at once. So anyway, that's the story on this.
So you said you can pick them ripe, yellow, or you can pick them green?
Yeah, well, picking this one green more means like picking it when it's actually starting to turn yellow, because like I said, it actually will stay yellow longer on the tree than the number. Like a number 4 turns yellow and it's on the ground like that day or the next day. This thing will turn yellow and stay on the tree for days and days and days before it actually drops, which is kind of cool, but like it's a good visual cue for picking it. So if you're like looking at a number 4 and it's green and you're not really sure if it's mature enough to pick, with this guy, it tells you it's ready because it turns yellow well before it drops. So I do like that about it. That's a good point.
If somebody tastes Nam Doc Mai and they like it, of all the different ones out there, the main 3 ones is what? The old one?
Well, the 3 that we grow, I mean, like I said, there's tons of them,
What are
right?
3 you grow?
We grow the Nam Doc Mai number 4, the Sia Tong, and we grow the Nam Doc Mai Moon. Yeah,
Okay.
those are the 3 we grow.
And of the 3, if somebody asked you which one they should get, you'd recommend this one?
No, I'd recommend the Moon.
The Moon, okay, and we're going to cover that
Yeah,
in
we'll
the future.
do that one, yeah.
Okay, well, it sounds good. Well, thank you for showing us this.
All right, everybody, that was Alex at Tropical Acres Farm. Part 1 of this video, talk about Thai mangoes. If you want to get any of these mangoes we spoke about today, or any other Thai mangoes, or any mangoes in general, Alex has them on his website for sale. During the season, you can buy the mangoes, but he also has budwood and the trees for sale as well. But I'm glad to make this video with Alex to discuss with the different varieties of the Thai mangoes, so you can make a wise choice if you choose to get one. So thank you for watching, everybody. The links are below to Alex's website. And if you have any other questions, let me know below in the comments. And if you want me to come feature your yard and talk about your trees, my email's below. I'm here in South Florida. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody, and keep growing. For more educational videos about mangoes and other fruits and how to grow fruit trees, please look out the other videos on this channel, Fruitful Trees, and also subscribe if you like, and also share these videos with others. Thank you for watching. Have a great day and keep growing.